Hello man, Reverb Twang here, Travis Nevels. I wanted to make a video on how to compose classical music. I see all these videos online, it's like how to compose music, and the first thing they do is go to a musical instrument and start banging on the keys and stuff, and like, you know, that's great for movie music, you know, but whenever I see a movie, whenever I hear a movie, I hear somebody banging around on a keyboard, a really nice keyboard with some really good sounds, or either they bang around on the keyboard and write the music and then print it out and give it to an orchestra, man. You know, a lot of those film composers do that. That's cool. That's film music. That's a whole different thing. I'm talking about classical music. First thing I do is make sure I'm nowhere near a musical instrument. The instruments I do use, I'll make like a 7-tone row. I don't even know if that's such a thing. I looked it up. I didn't find any. It may be my own invention. I don't know. But I use 7-tone rows. I make it. It's like making a Babbitt square or a matrix. I don't always use them. Sometimes they just sit here. Most of the time they just sit here. I started in the beginning doing it, and I recommend making Babbitt squares and just making 12-tone music for about half a year, just straight up, and it'll get you ready for this stuff. And then as far as getting ready for the I have a chart here of negative tone harmonies, or negative harmony mirror. All the other harmonies I can figure out in my head from my years and years of classical training and playing music. I'll have a chart here. It's got, you know, the modes, the 7 modes. There's the extra one squeezed in there, which is the Harris's, what's his name? Barry Harris's 6th diminished, which in between the Mixolydian and the Aeolian, they throw another diminished in there, which, you know, they could use the Dorian chord as a diminished, and that one, and you know, I'll put that on here. I also make my notes like in this key of B flat, the D sharp and E, or the D flat and the E flat makes it Hungarian minor. The G sharp will make it a harmonic minor, and then whenever you're ascending, if you hit the E and the G flat and the ascending, that's where you get your melodic minor. So that I got my notes here that I keep aside. That's it. Other than that, you know, get you some classical training, man. You know, study that Bach, study all that stuff, get you some classical training. In the beginning, here's what I do. I'll come up with a rhythm, and I'll write down the timpani and the string part and have a rhythm going. Bam. Which in this case is a rave beat, because I wanted to do something with the orchestra that's unorthodox, since I've been doing just basically sticking to the book for 6 months. I wanted to have the, they call the 1-5-9-13 in the sequencer world, because it's because the accent's on 1-5-9-13. And then I said, okay, it's going to be in B flat, got Phrygian, so it's going to be around D, because I wanted to have that Spanish tone. So I got the beat going, and you know, and then the guitars and pan flutes and sitars and everything are gonna do some Spanish style stuff over it. So, you know, I'll sit here and I'll just start putting rhythms on the, I'll put the rhythm down first, and then go to the top and start putting the head, you know, and just start creating a head, you know. And if you're in the key, you know, and you get your rhythm going, it's going to sound pretty cool. But it's not going to sound like somebody sitting on a guitar but banging out a riff or something, which is good for songwriting and stuff. Don't get me wrong, man. I do stuff like Electric Wizard and stuff to where I write songs. This isn't a song. Song means lyrics. This is music. This is classical music. It's different. You know, get off the instrument, man. You know, give it a try. Give it a try. Like I said, if you want to learn how to compose like Zappa or something without an instrument anywhere around, or like Shostakovich, you got to practice, man. You know, the 12-tone music is perfect for that. It may sound like crap, and a lot of people hate 12-tone music and all that, and unless they're watching a movie or something. They watch, you know, Stranger Things or something, there's 12-tone music all through it. But they don't really like just sitting and listen to it. Anyway, that's what I do. Like this one here, I haven't even got the time signature yet. It's going to be in the key of F. I got my little note up here. Okay, there's a B flat in the key of F. I don't know the time signature yet. I don't even know what instruments I'm using. I've got it marked out for 8 instruments. So what I'll do is find out what time it's going to be in, and then I'll make a rhythm with usually the timpanis and the low strings, and get the rhythm going, and then build all on top of it. Another technique that I've developed lately that's kind of become my trademark is during the development, right before the recapitulation, I'll kind of fold in a 12-tone matrix into it to add more dissonance, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing is kind of dissonant anyway, because I'm using Hungarian minor and Lydian flat 9 and stuff to get that eerie sound. So if you want to make it sound more eerie, I mean, there's not really any more dissonant places you can go until you hit the 12 tone. So that's kind of been my thing. I'll fold in a 12 tone, some 12 tone stuff right before the recapitulation, and it adds a lot of tension. And that's kind of a technique I've been developing lately. So, you know, just give it a try, man. You know, get away from the instrument, man. You know, because whenever you write something on the keyboard, you know, for a movie or whatever, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. You know, I've tried writing a few times without or with an instrument, like a guitar concerto. The first one I threw in the trash, I burned it. You know, I tried again to come up with a motive on the guitar or something first, and then write something with it. I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. You know, so the way I compose, you get away from all musical instruments. I have nothing but my knowledge, and my knowledge is quite a bit. I've had 7 surgeries in my elbows and hands, and most of it's from practicing classical music and guitar for years and years and years. So, you know, I recommend getting some classical training, man. You know, before you start writing classical music, man, get your training first. You know, a lot of these cats out there, you know, even people like John Cage and, you know, Stephen Wright, Philip Glass, I've never seen them perform the Bach. I've never seen them perform the Beethoven and all that. And it's a bit pretentious for me to not even consider them classical composers. In order for someone to be a classical composer, for me, they have to first be a classical musician, man. Can you play the Bach? Can you play the Beethoven? Let me see it. Okay, if you can't, then, you know, please don't call yourself a classical composer, because you're not even a classical musician. And yeah, I'm a bit pretentious when it comes to this stuff, because like I said, I've had 7 surgeries from practicing. I know this stuff inside and out. I could write 4-part harmonies in my head, you know, on 4ths, 5ths, whatever, in any key, and it takes some practice to do that. But if you really want to compose classical music, you got to get away from that. You got to get away from that instrument, man, because it's going to sound like you're composing on an instrument. You know, instead of sounding like you know, Shostakovich, you know, a piece that's like just sitting down at the table with a suit on writing like he did every day, or Frank Zappa, you know, it's going to sound like you wrote it on an instrument, man. Well, like I said, that's cool and all for certain stuff, you know, but not classical music. Not classical music. You know, film music, yeah. But, you know, I had to make this video because I'm tired of seeing how to compose music, and I go to a thing and then it's like, well, first you turn on Pro Tools and, you know, no, man, you know, no, you know, just do it, man. Just do it. Just do it. Practice. The 12-tone music and the tone rows and the Babbitt squares are great, because for 6 months or so you can forsake all the keys and the modes and all that, and just focus on the rhythms and everything and everything, and it is a hell of a training mechanism, you know. So I definitely recommend that. But, you know, all these people saying how to compose music, and then they show an instrument and stuff, and they're banging it on the keyboard. And no, man, no, that's not how we classical musicians compose classical music. We don't use an instrument. You know, our mind is the instrument. Our knowledge is an instrument. Our training is an instrument. You know, and you know, maybe a 7-tone row. This is my 7-tone row that I make, and I don't use them all the time. You know, one thing good about writing without an instrument, for me, you know, it takes a long time to develop your own sound. I've developed my own sound about 30 years ago, and everything I've written since then sounds like Travis freaking Neville's, man. And now with this techniques and stuff that I'm using, I could write stuff that doesn't sound like me. I can think of stuff that I wouldn't have thought of. As long as you're playing on an instrument, you're gonna be playing stuff inside your vocabulary and stuff that you've learned, and it's gonna sound like that. You know, until you step away from your instrument and start writing on paper, it's gonna sound like you, and that's cool and all. If you want to sound like you, I mean, it takes years. Most people never develop their own style and their own sound, which that's a good thing too. But this is like, you know, after you've learned all your skills, after you learned all your theory. I mean, in my case, I can't even hold a guitar anymore because of my arthritis is so bad, man. I use a cane and wheelchairs and stuff. You know, so this is a way that I can keep musically active, and believe me, I've been learning and learning and learning. I've learned more in the past year since I've been doing this about writing music than I have by reading music and practicing scales and all this stuff for years and years, man. This is going to be a pretty long video, but anyway, thanks for watching. Man, just try it, man. Just try it. Get away from the instrument and write some stuff, and then try to go read it, you know, because if you're not reading and writing, it's like you're not getting the full story. I mean, somebody could tell you about a book and everything and explain it to you and be like, wow, that's cool, man, and you can write that stuff down. But if you hadn't read the book, then you're not getting the depth of it. And you know, if you've been playing music for a few years, it's time to learn to read. You know, it's time to read and write the language, man. You know, I'm so sick of going to, you know, I go to the clubs and try to see bands and stuff, and for me, it's just a headache, man, because it's so illiterate, and it just sounds like illiterate, man. And it's like, why don't you learn to read and write the language? If you're going to consider yourself a musician, learn to read and write the language, you know? I mean, it would be like, you know, I can't weld. I could go weld some stuff together, you know, and everything, but a welder's going to look at it and be like, oh, man, that's horrible, man. That is just horrible. And it's going to be hard for them to even look at it. That's how it is for professional musicians that read and write the language to go to a club or something and see music and stuff. It's crazy, man. You know, I've seen like 10,000 bands. I lived in Austin. I lived in Houston. But these days, man, I can't even go to a club hardly and see it. It just drives me crazy, man, because it's like, you know, like I said, man, it'd be like if I welded some shit together, you know, you look at it and go like, dang, this dude cannot weld. He's not a welder. You know, I'm not a welder. I can't weld, but I can do this. All right, man, thanks for watching, and just give it a try, man. Get away from the instrument and write.